Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mentor Podcast, where you will learn how to make more money, keep more money, protect it while you're alive, and spend it before you are gone. This podcast is all about creating a better lifestyle, and I don't know anybody better to talk to about protecting it today than our guest, Mr. Lou Brown. Now, I'm going to let Lou tell you all how important he is, but first I got to tell you something. There's not very many people that I can say been in this business longer than me, but Lou is one of them. Not necessarily older than me, but he has actually a longer tenure than I do. So welcome, Lou. How are you?
Yeah, baby. Well, thank you, Ron. I've been at this game of buying, selling, and holding property now for over 40 years, and I'm a very blessed man for having discovered real estate, that's for sure.
All right. So today we are going to discuss the subject of trust, which I honestly don't know anybody better qualified than you are on, including any attorney I've ever talked to. So give me a little description. I guess probably first you ought to tell us a little bit about your background, and then go ahead with what kind of trust will we be discussing today, because people are going to have to take notes on this podcast for sure.
That's for sure. It's got a lot of good information. Well, I've been buying, selling, and holding property for all those years. And one of the things I found is that you're putting yourself at risk, really. So I just kind of learned a lot of things. I joined my local RIA back in 1983, if you can believe that, and then discovered that a lot of people were getting lawsuits and they were having challenges, issues. They were having to file evictions. They were having trouble with tenants. There was a lot of things going on, and I continued to go down the path of my real estate career, buying, renovating, selling, buying, renovating, holding, buying and holding, where the occupants renovated the property and I gave them work for equity credits. There's a lot of different things we did. We started doing rentals, then lease options, then owner financing and cashing out people. So I've done just about every kind of aspect of real estate. I've done condo conversions. I've done land development where we divided it into lots. I've done just pretty much every aspect of real estate: commercial properties, single family properties, small multifamily properties, apartments, all kinds of different things. And over the years, I just learned that I better figure out a way to protect myself. And so you asked me to speak to everyone about this marvelous thing called land trusts and personal property trusts today.
Okay, so you learned over the years that the more you make, the more other people want it that don't deserve it. And along the way, the School of Hard Knocks taught you how to keep more of it, right?
Exactly. I say that there's a lot of people out there that don't want to do what you did to get what you've got. They only want what you've got.
That's right. So a new American business opportunity is litigation and settlements. Yeah. All right. Well, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with land trust, personal property trust, or any other particular trust that is?
Well, I think it's good to first of all kind of get their head around what it is that we're trying to do with trusts, and I call it the 4 Ps: privacy, protection, probate avoidance, and profits. And with this marvelous thing called land trusts, which is different than other trusts, there's about 30 different kinds of trusts out there. So many times attorneys and individuals get confused about when they hear this term of trust. They don't understand that there's actually distinctions and differences in those trusts. And so one of my favorites is this thing called land trust, because it does things that the other trusts don't do. And one of the great things that land trusts do is they can provide that first P called privacy. And so we can actually purchase a property into trust. We can have the property deeded directly to a trust, and the trust could be named anything we choose. And so that's one of the unique features of a land trust, is that you can name the trust anything you choose. And I really like that because there's some naming strategies that can be used to essentially throw people off the scent. And just to back up for a second, one of the things that happens out there in the real world is, let's say that somebody decides that they want to go after you for whatever reason, and maybe no reason at all. They just decide that, hey, you might be ripe for the picking. And so maybe they slipped, maybe they fell, maybe they didn't. Maybe they created a situation where they had quote unquote damages, and they decide that they're going to go after this landowner because they figure they're rich. And one of the things they do, of course, is they do a title search, or they just go right online. It's so easy to do. Just type in that address of the property with the tax assessor's office and find out who the owner of that property is. And they can also find out what the value of the property is. They can find out if there's an existing loan on the property, even find out what the interest rate of that loan is. And that's one of the scariest things that that technology has developed over the years, is the ease at which people can just step in and find out exactly what you own. And so
no privacy left, is there?
Oh, baby. Well, there is. And it's this marvelous thing called land trust.
Well, and let me rephrase. There's no privacy left if you own stuff in your own name. So what you just said was, when I go on public record, I better not find your name.
Yeah, and I think everybody that's paying attention right now should think about that. Do they have their own personal residence in their name? Do they have any other real estate in their own name? And then you think about, okay, if it's that easy for someone to go online and actually find who owns the property, of course, now they find out what name that's in. And if it's in an individual's name, they know exactly who to sue. And it's one of the favorite things of attorneys when they find out, hey, this person owns that property in their name. Oh my gosh, that's a straight path to the money, baby.
Yeah. So one of the values of a trust is privacy, because nowhere on public record it shows who owns the trust. It just shows that the trust owns the property.
Exactly. The beneficial interest of the trust is private, and it's not published anywhere, and only the trustee and the beneficiary knows who the beneficiary of the trust is. So now we've got that benefit working for us out there in the real world. And, if you just think about that as like the first line of defense, that each and every property should be in its own trust. And this unique thing called land trust lets us even name the trust something unique, like the Sister Mary Frances Trust, for example. And so then somebody thinks, oh my gosh, I don't want to sue the nuns, or this is owned by the Catholic Church and they got tons of money. And so I don't think I want to take on the Catholic Church right now. And, another one is the Native American Youth Trust, who wants to take on the Indians. They used to own it first, and it got stolen from them first. So nobody wants to mess with them. And,
all right, so we got privacy. One of my favorite benefits of it, though, is that it prevents liens against you to attach to properties you don't own, and you don't own them when you put them into the trust. And to me, that's very, very important as well. And of course, the first thing people say, well, I got insurance. And then the next thing I'm going to say is, do you have insurance against an Irs tax lien?
Exactly.
In anything, of course, their eyes light up.
Yeah, if somebody gets a judgment against you personally, it goes against anything that's in your name personally. And so one of the cool things is, like you said, if they get a judgment against themselves and they do the research of what you own in your name and find nothing, well, that judgment is just against you personally. So it's one of the first lines of defense, really, to get your name off public record and not own anything in your own name. And I'm not talking about just real estate, but personal property too.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the personal property first. You and I both know that a lot of attorneys, in fact, most attorneys, will poo-poo land trust. In fact, I swear to you, this week I had conversations with two different attorneys on land trust, and both of them weren't in love with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them both why. And both of them came up with the same answer, because it's not an asset protection device. And of course, I went back and said, who said it was? we all know if a predator wants you and you let them, they can come take your beneficial interest away from you. But, do you want to own it in your own name where you're a sitting duck? Or do you want to own it in a land trust and make them work to find out who owns it? And of course, the smarter you get, the quicker you'll learn that it's not about hiding stuff anyway. It's about making sure they can't get it even after they find out you got it. So
Exactly.
Let's make this point, Lou. Land trusts are for privacy, and they work well, and they are for lien attachment prevention, and they work well. And there's no tax ramifications. There's no ID. There's no federal filing. There's no form to fill out. There's nobody's permission you need. And in fact, the bank can't even call the loan due, can they?
That's correct. That's the other P I love to talk about is profits, that you can profit from putting property in trust because the lender's prohibited from calling the loan due when someone places their property in trust for estate planning purposes. So essentially, anybody who looks at it, well, the lender is, if they shake the cage or try to do anything to call that loan due, they can't get away with it because it's actually protected by the law that gave
and they know it.
banks the right to put that lien
on the
property. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've had a few students actually write the bank. Of course, they just challenged me, testing me, and the bank wrote them a letter back. I've seen them and they cited the Guernsey Germain Act. So
exactly.
we don't need to worry about that one. Okay, well, listen, we got a few questions. I got to get in here.
I'm ready.
Because I know that you could talk for hours on this. So I'm going to knock out some of the questions that I get all the time. First of all, who should be my trustee?
Well, it needs to be somebody other than you if you're going to be the beneficiary. So we can start with friends and family, and friends and family that you trust is a good way to start. And of course, the property is held by a third party because if anything happens to you personally, that third party is the one that can pass it on to your heirs.
Mm-hmm. Now, you live in Georgia. I believe in Georgia, you're required to have an individual trustee, correct?
Not required to. We could have a trustee as an entity, but it would have to be approved by banking and finance because essentially they're looking at it like you're actually acting as an entity that's taking on the role of being a trustee for other people.
All right, and that's Georgia, and that's a few other states. Florida is not that case. In Florida, I use my own LLC. Do you know how many states require an individual or a registered entity like you discussed?
About 15. About 15 states require that. But, one of the things that I look at is even if we were going to use an entity as the trustee, it's still kind of collecting up all of your marbles and putting them in one place, and I like to spread out the marbles. So, they call it modus operandi, your MO. I don't want them to kind of tie everything together. So I like to spread those out and have multiple different trustees for properties, maybe 4 or 5 properties.
I do too.
One
but
type.
Still, they're all my LLCs.
Mm-hmm.
I find it very easy to find a trustee when I need them.
Exactly.
If they're my LLC. And they don't charge much either. And they're very, very cooperative. Okay.
They do whatever you tell them to do. That's a beautiful thing.
So while we're on that subject, let me see. There's 50 states in the union last time I checked. How many of them can you use grantor revocable, land trust in?
All of them. All 50. So that's that's the magic.
All right. So that actually does work in my state?
It does. Okay. It does. And one of the funny things is trusts got here before LLCs and corporations and limited partnerships.
Way before.
Trust came over on the Mayflower. So
actually they came in before that.
Yep.
They were using trust when Julius Caesar was alive.
Exactly. I'm saying that to the United States of America, they came over on the Mayflower, but they've been going back to, as you say, Julius, 51 BC.
All right. Well, look, there's 2 parts to a trust described. Since we've really only got about 30 minutes on this thing, so we're going to do as much damage as we can here.
Okay.
Until we run out of time. there's two parts to a trust, and within that same question is, do I need an attorney to set up a land trust? So how do I set up a land trust? That's a question you and I get all the time.
Well, there's paperwork, and one of the things that you need is a deed. You're going to deed it from your name to your trust name, and I created a document years ago called Affidavit of Trust that we record along with the deed, and it pretty much cleans up title issues that might come up at a later date. When you actually go to sell the property, that's when you have your challenges, and they want to ask lots of personal questions about your trust, and they like to record your trust, and they want copies of your trust and all that sort of thing. So I created this affidavit of trust that kind of cleans up that issue, and we record that along with the trust. But basically, once you've got those two documents and you record them on public record, you've literally deeded the property from your name to the trust name. And now that's for the world to see. Then there's separate documents that are private documents that only you and your trustee see. And I've got declaration of trust and land trust agreement and appointment of trustee, appointment of successor trustee, directions to trustee. Those are private documents that the world doesn't see.
Yeah. So they go in your filing cabinet at home, which is the only place the actual disclosure of the beneficial interest is, in your filing cabinet at home.
Exactly. That's a beautiful thing. Now you got some privacy.
What if I want to? Should I put my home in a trust?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, why? I got insurance, Lou.
I know, but when someone dies, then it can pass to your heirs without going through a painful other P called probate. And probate is when, the court system and the attorneys take the property from the rightful or from the dead person and give it to the rightful living heirs. And there's a whole process that goes with that can be completely avoided when you use trusts. And there's a lot of people,
as long as a foreclosure.
Another P is called pain. A lot of people have gone through the pain of probate, and the delay, the confusion, the cost, all of that can be avoided when you just take action now and put the property into trust.
And not only that, it keeps personal liens from attaching to your home.
Exactly.
But Ron, they can't take my home for a judgment. Yeah, well, what happens when you get ready to sell? The lien's still attached to your house, so you become the stuckee.
Exactly.
So, yes.
And it really depends on which state you're in, too, because some states it can be liquidated for a judgment.
That's correct. Well, speaking of that, what about those states which have homestead exemption? How do I keep my measly little tax deduction because I live in the house every year?
It's a beautiful thing. Well, the trust, when you transfer it out of your name to the trust name, next year when they look again to see if that property has changed hands, you will have to file for a homestead exemption. And when you do, they may require an additional proof that you are entitled to that homestead exemption, but typically that's only kept at the tax assessor's office. So it's not something.
You know what they do in Florida?
What's that?
They send me a postcard every year and say, please notify us if you don't live in the house anymore. so there's nothing to do. Okay, so I do nothing.
That's a beautiful thing. In Georgia, we did it, 30 years ago, and we've never had to do anything since. So, once it's set up that way in most states and you apply for the homestead exemption and it's granted, then it just stays that way.
And what about transfer tax? What if I put my my home in a trust? Am I going to have to pay doc stamp transfer tax or whatever they call it in the state you live in?
No, because it's a gift. And so you're just gifting it from you to your trust. And so as a gift, there's not a transfer tax. They do charge a recording fee to record the deed, but that's typically only $10 to $30. So it's very inexpensive, very inexpensive to get this insurance policy.
In Florida, we had to pay $7 plus recording costs. So we got about $25 to put a property into a trust.
It's the most beautiful thing ever.
And what if I want to get a loan on the house after I put it in a trust? Against all of our advice.
Exactly. Don't go to banks. Don't qualify for loans. But if you do, you can do that. And in fact, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, they all have guidelines for lending to properties that are in trust. And so now, of course, The mortgage broker doesn't know that, but the underwriters can actually look it up in their documents, and they can find out that there's actually guidelines for that. So you have to go a few more steps to really take advantage of all the benefits of trust. And
I'd say good luck on that one, because unfortunately you're fighting off a lot of ignorance. And in my experience, they're going to make you take it out of the trust, but nothing's stopping you from putting it back in the trust the day you close the loan.
You can do that, but I like to even go one step further. It's painful. You got to talk to people and got to keep running up the chain of command until you can find somebody that'll listen. But it is doable.
Well, it is, but I'm just saying from my experience, it is doable, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it. Regardless, if you just don't go apply for the loan, you won't have to worry about it. If you just listen, you won't have to worry about it, will you?
If they would just listen and learn and apply what we teach them, they don't have to go to banks and qualify for loans.
Absolutely not. All right. Well, listen, you talked about this personal property trust thing. Explain when I'm going to use that.
Well, Ron, that is for everything else in your life. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, bank accounts, CDs, CDs, mobile homes, motor homes, gun collections, coin collections, really anything in your life goes into an individual personal property trust. And even the beneficial interest of a land trust can go into a personal property trust. So it's a really cool benefit that a lot of people overlook. But if somebody looks you up on public record, even at the DMV, and you don't have any vehicles in your name, my gosh, you look totally broke. And for most people, they're just not willing to spend the money to get a judgment against somebody that's totally broke.
Yeah, well, let's come back to that for a moment, because that's a broad subject and we get a lot of questions on it. And the reason people don't do it is because they have no clue they can. Number one, they probably never heard of a personal property trust.
Right.
And you're going to get a little flack on it. So what? Look, every vehicle I own is in its own individual personal property trust. Vehicles are a deadly asset to own. If they have a motor, they are deadly and literally could wipe you out. So the fact that it's in a personal property trust means that one vehicle is the only thing in that trust. So it's the only egg in that basket is the point there. Plus,
exactly right. Separate and segregate your assets into separate pockets.
I had a case not too long ago where a fellow met me in the men's restroom, stood beside me in the urinal, and he started telling me his story with a tear running down his eye. And it was all about how he and his wife had their car in their own name, and they loaned it to their son. The son went out, got drunk, accident, killed him got sued, of course, huge judgment, literally lost everything they own. And literally all because they just didn't know, never take title to a thing with a motor in your own name, ever. If they'd have just taken title to that thing in a personal property trust, it may not have insulated them against suit, but it was sure made it a whole lot harder to get through and get to them. And
it's
certainly they would have
harder.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right, Ron, and that's a great piece of advice. The thing is that when you don't have things in your name, the fact that they can sue is one thing. The fact that they can collect is a whole other thing.
Amen, brother.
A lot of maneuvers that can happen during that period of time when they're trying to attack and attach that can disappear money, disappear assets, and really protect.
Well, speaking of money, and I can tell you this from experience: don't even own a bank account in your own name. Well, if you should actually, but a small one. Don't ever keep very much money in a bank account unless it's in a personal property trust or a subject we're not going to get onto, or if you're in attendance by the entirety state and you're married, also a good way to own that bank account. But if you have a bank account in your own name, I can tell you, once they get a judgment, that bank account is going to go away quickly. And you won't even know it's gone until after it's gone.
Exactly.
You might have a chance to prove that they shouldn't take it, but you're going to lose that case because they got a judgment against you. You got no evidence or no case really why they shouldn't take it. So literally it comes back to don't own anything in your own name. So what you've said is if it's not real estate, it's personal property trust, which are you got them. very easy to get. And I mean, an idiot could fill them out. It takes a maximum of 2 minutes to fill in the 5 or 6 blank that are on any of these trusts. Now, Lou, what about, let's say I sell a house and I take back a mortgage. People owe me a debt. It could be a mortgage. Maybe I made a private loan, or maybe I bought a tax lien. How would you take ownership of that?
Well, if it's a property that was in trust, in a land trust, then that trust is the one that actually provides what's called purchase money financing. But if you were to buy a note from someone else, then you would buy that into a personal property trust. And that's the cool thing, that you can buy notes in trust. You can buy any kind of asset, even jewels, gold, silver, stock accounts, anything can be in a personal property trust.
Right. So in other words, if I loan you $100,000, the last thing I want is my name on record as the owner of that note. Because
Correct.
That's as easy to attach as a bank account. Judge signs one piece of paper, you don't own the note anymore.
Exactly. If it's searchable on the internet, they'll find your stuff. And the fact is that on public record, that's the place that they can attach it. If your name is not open and available on public record, they can't attach it.
Got it. All right. Well, listen, we could spend, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days on this subject.
Exactly.
In fact, you do, don't you?
I do. I have a 4-day training on this thing.
God, I don't know if you're going to keep people awake 4 days to train on this stuff, but
they are very entertained.
Yeah, good. I imagine. Because you're very entertaining, even when you're sober. Worse when you're not. Okay. By the way, how far you and I go back? I don't know. 19 what? 50 something. I don't know. I lose track.
We have been good friends since about 1987, 1986, something like that.
I wish I could tell you. I started 82. You started 83. I don't really know. I just don't. But it was way back. Anyway, I always call you the guy with the best package of agreements I've ever seen. So tell me something. You're going to give away a book here, aren't you?
I am. Talk to me. I'm going to give away a book on trusts. Imagine that. And it's the 4 Ps: the privacy, protection, probate avoidance, and profits of trusts. And we're going to make that available through all of your folks that are following you, and give them a free copy.
Okay. Is this a downloadable copy, Lou, or is this a shipped copy, or can they get it shipped with shipping and handling? What's the deal?
They can either get the download version, just download it, that'll be totally free, or they can have it shipped to them for, I think it's $5.97, something like that, for the shipping cost.
Are you kidding me? If I had to download that thing, I'd pay you 5 times that to keep from downloading it. I ain't downloading no stupid book. I tell you that for a fact. So, guys, you probably ought to pay the shipping and handling and have it in your hand so you can read it on the airplanes and the like. So you don't have to print it out. But your choice, anyway.
That's my choice. All right. I love to hold the book in my hand. I'm like you. I guess we're old.
Okay. and of course, anybody that wants to know any more about this trust stuff, and actually many other facets of real estate, you got a lot of stuff. I mean, I know you got a lot of training available. So order Lou's book, and then he'll make you acquainted with what he's got, and you decide whether you want any of it or not. Is that fair? That's fair.
Yeah, baby.
Okay. Now, if you are listening to this and you are not a Ron LeGrand or a Global Publishing client yet, you can get my stuff at ronlegrand.com. or you can get my free wholesaling course at ronsdollardeal.com. And for only $1, you can get a $600 course and a 30-day trial membership to our Gold Club, which is an incredible website with all the tools and training and resources that you can imagine that you'd want in your business, plus a daily feed of FSBO leads for you. Anyway, you can check it out, ronsdollardeal.com. So, Mr. Lou Brown, it's been a pleasure working with you today. You're always a huge source of information, and I appreciate you taking the time to spend with our clients today.
And we're going to send them to the free book, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to give them that URL. We didn't do that, did we?
What is that?
It's the Mentor Podcast thementorpodcast.com/trust.
Thementorpodcast.com/trust with a small t, right?
I don't think it makes any difference
whether
it's a small t or not. And let me verify. Yes, trust, plural, TURSTS. Thementorpodcast.com/trusts, plural. Okay?
TRUSTS. Yeah,
yes.
Baby. That's an awesome thing, Ron. Well, thank you for having me on board today, and I hope we've entertained, engaged, and enlightened a lot of folks out there in the world on this great thing that has saved my bacon so many times. I'm just going to encourage everybody, you got to learn the magic of trust. So see you soon.
Okay, then by the way, Lou, I would venture to bet that the conversation we just had in the last 30 minutes could easily save somebody's entire assets if they take advantage of it and actually dig deeper and learn how to protect themselves against predators. It has to start with information like this, but it has to be followed up with implementation to put this stuff to work. And that way we don't have any sad stories when we see you at a live event like I had from the gentleman standing beside me in the urinal. All right, guys. Thank you, Lou.
Take care.
Thank everybody for listening. So much, Ron. See you on the next podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.